Hi! Welcome to the Bob Reeves Brass live Facebook stream. My name is John Snell. I'm happy to be your host today, and very special guest today. I'm so happy to have not in the studio with me, but virtually is Charley Davis. Charley is a student of William Adam, of course, from Indiana University, lead and studio trumpet player here in LA for years after being in Vegas, lead trumpet on Woody Herman and Buddy Rich's big band, and the compiler and editor of the William Adam Tribute Trumpet book, which, of course, I have my well-used copy here with me. So, without further ado, let's bring Charley in here. Hey, Charley. Oh, you're ready for COVID.
I don't know if anybody else is having trouble practicing with this damn thing, but it ain't easy. I've been trying. It's like, yeah.
So that'll be our first question: is how do you properly play with the surgical mask on?
Think properly with it.
Awesome. Well, before we get going, man, we already have viewers in from all around the world. Show us some love down in the comments. We already have Jack Cassidy, Gary Gopar joining in. So watch out. We better keep it clean. So show us some love in the comments. Let us know where you're viewing from. And, of course, most importantly, if you have a question for Charley, let us know in the comments section. And the first question comes from Freddie, who asked earlier about buzzing the lead pipe, or I would say blowing the lead pipe, Charley. How much energy do you put in when you're blowing? Do you have any suggestions for that when you're blowing the pipe?
Yeah, actually I do. And the reason for Bill Adam starting to do this was a lot of people were buzzing when you actually buzz the mouthpiece. I'll show you a couple of things on this. You actually change things a little bit to get the sound out of the mouthpiece. Mm-hmm. A good way to do this, and is one of the things Bill Adam showed us all, was like, just think about blowing the air and let the standing wave set up. So you're not really blowing hard or anything. You just blow air, form your armature, and blow air. And once you get that point where it sets the standing wave up in the pipe, it's like a short trumpet. You'll get the fundamental sound on it. So it's not really like trying to blow it hard or anything. Of course, then you got different harmonics on the pipe. You can do some things with too. So it's not a design for a trumpet really, because it's not, the harmonic series is kind of screwed up a little bit, but instead of being an octave, so. So you can get all those notes. You can actually do, once you play a little bit and get the blood going on that fundamental, you can even do tonguing on it, You can just, it's the whole purpose of this is, rather than to get your chops in a more tense situation or to overblow the thing, you just get the tone, get warmed up with it, and then go into the trumpet. Mm-hmm. And play the trumpet. But it's not like you're playing a mouthpiece. You don't have to put that much effort into it. It's all air. Try to find a hole. It's all just setting up that standing wavelength. Mm-hmm. And getting that tone to start.
So how long do you normally do that? I mean, do you ease into the pipe, or does it just depend on the day?
For me, I just do it till I start feeling like I got the blood going and my chops are loosening up a little bit. Then I do another thing that a friend of mine, Tony Scodwell, gave me. He put these things together. What's he called it? I forget, but maybe it's on one of these in here. He calls it a chop flex. And what I started doing is just like, if you play the start on low C, and you do the stamp. And you go on up as high as you can with it.
Mm-hmm.
Set your corners up, and a lot of people will find that doing this, he's got the resistance here, so it feels about the same as playing a trumpet. So you can play on up there smoothly.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people, you'll find when you first start to do it, you go, and you won't be able to move on up from there. And you're dealing with some things in your vocal position in your mouth, like a singer would. So you're getting through these little lifts and things that smooths out that you're playing a little bit. And you can play on up as high as you want to go with it. And if you do that stamp thing and just keep it on your chops, when you get through, you really feel your corners and give yourself a few minutes to just go ahead and play trumpet then.
So it's a good way to kind of work through the breaks.
That's what I've been doing. Yeah, when you have a break in your register or something, you'll hear when you first start doing it, you'll hear these spots, and it's pretty similar up for everybody. There'll be spots where you won't be able to go, like it's usually G to A and right in there, and when you get where you can smoothly do that, you pick up the trumpet, and it's easier.
All right.
And I try to go every morning to do that up to double C on that mouthpiece and that little gizmo. Mm-hmm. And it a lot of trumpet players have problems like around A, B flat, B. There's a setting there where you're actually kind of going into a falsetto setting in your vocalizing. Bud Brisbois had problems at one time. When I was in college, we used to do these tours with Henry Mancini and a number of artists through this one agency, and Bud Brisbois came out a lot of times and played lead for Henry Mancini, and he had problems with a B, and he was a very good singer, and he started studying voice to help him get through that stuff, So so where he could transition from the A to B flat B smoothly, and of course he got it, but he always felt insecure on that B.
Interesting. Next question is somewhat related to the pipe. Phil Jordan. Hey, Phil. Got some old students showing up, and good friend. Hope you're doing well, Phil. His question is, he's been blowing pipe on a E flat trumpet pipe because he prefers beginning to warm up on a little higher harmonic. Any advice on that? And is that okay?
Nothing wrong with that. No, nothing wrong with that at all.
Mm-hmm.
Someone actually put one together for me where I had this one and then one a third higher and one a fifth higher and one an octave higher. I think it's in my car. And Bill Adam actually would sometimes play a piccolo pipe or something like that after he played that one.
Mm-hmm. Kind of work his way up.
Yeah, but I honestly don't spend that much time on it, and a lot of times I'll, if I'm feeling all right, I'll just go right ahead and practice, If you're playing a lot, you can do that. Unfortunately, I haven't been playing a lot.
Well, yeah, you've been busy with horns and mutes and all kinds of other stuff that we'll get into, I'm sure, here at some point. We have Sydney, Australia checking in, Oregon, the Netherlands, so we're spanning the globe. I saw my buddy from Japan in Tokyo pop in, so hi to all of you viewing from around the world. This is so awesome and so great to have Charley Davis here answering your questions live. So show us some love in the comments. Share this with your friends while you're watching. Let them know that we're here talking with Charley, and ask your questions. What do you want to hear about from Charley? He's got so much to talk about. I mean, we're just scratching the surface so far, just buzzing the lead pipe. Matt Cochran, you mentioned setting up your corners. How important is that, and is that something we should be working on?
It's
Good question.
it's something you don't really need to worry about.
Mm-hmm.
It will happen when you get the sound right. If you're playing properly, if you just focus on the sound and doing flexibilities and all your routine practicing, there's a number of exercises you'll feel more of it with. Endurance exercises, for example, that are in the Atom book. I can find them for you if I. Do you have it? Ask the gentleman if he has an Atom book.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, the Bill Adam book, right? Which section is it? I got mine here.
Yeah, it's towards the end. I can find it pretty quick.
Yeah, while you're looking that up, Arturo Sandoval's watching.
Hey, Arturo.
Yeah, thanks for joining in.
Thanks for sending that recording this morning. On page 92, that's where they start. And number 3 there is a great one. That if you play that through all the bugles, it's what it is this. I'm going to go over where I don't crack the mic. So you do all your bugles that way, and the pattern changes. You don't take the horn off your face. There's 4 different patterns there, and it ends up, you get through that, and you'll feel your corners a little bit. Some guys when they first start doing it can't get through it without stopping and resting, particularly younger players. But it's a good endurance thing. I'd play through it, but it takes a while. I don't want to take up the time. But you just play through all 7 bugles down, and it changes the pattern. You go 7 bugles up to back up to open, and then 7 bugles down to 1, 2, and 3. Then the 4th one is B da 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 da. It's like going up to the higher note at the end, and that's a very good one. There's another one there too, the chromatic one, number 4. Which you don't take the horn off your face either. You just keep going higher. It's just chromatic scale down, octave, and back up, and then back up and down and back up, and then you go up a half step, and you just keep playing. It's written out there with the instructions for it. But yeah, you just those kind of things, you'll start feeling the corners. But during your regular practice, if you're doing long tones, you're doing flexibilities, you'll start feeling the corners develop. It's a natural thing that happens as your embouchure starts to develop. And the most important part is not so much your corners, which will be there, but is to focus on the sound that you're getting. And if you got your mind constantly in the tone quality, it's amazing. Everything else falls back and starts falling in place. If you got your air relaxed and you're listening to and imagining like a beautiful sound all the time when you're playing, that you'll always start to fall into your embouchure will start to develop without having to analyze it and pick it apart and all that kind of thing. Because you start thinking about things and it gets exaggerated in the physical activity that actually happens in. So if you're thinking about corners being tight when you're playing, your corners will probably get too tight. But if you're thinking about the sound and you're always concentrating on a beautiful tone quality, you may realize later on your corners have a little fatigueness to them, and they're set. But you don't think about it. You're only thinking about the sound quality. Yeah. Some people have a real hard time of separating that physical thing from just the imagination and thinking of a good quality sound all the time. It comes with practice.
Yeah, and that's something I want to talk about with you. And we're chatting here live with Charley Davis. Share this stream with your friends. Let them know. And, of course, show us some love in the comments and ask any questions you'd like. We got some coming in that we'll get to. But, Charley, about sound and developing a good sound, first of all, who influenced your sound, and then how do you translate that into your own sound in your practice?
Okay, yeah, it's your imagination, really. And Bill Adam had one of the most beautiful trumpet sounds that I've ever heard. And he always played, and we played. So he played by example. So you were always listening to that sound, and you're always trying to play that kind of characteristics in your own sound. And when I was in college, the people I listened to the most were uh, Adolf. These are all different genres, of course. Adolf Hirschfeld, Maurice Andre, Doc Severinsen, and I love Snooky Young's lead trumpet playing. So you get all of those different sounds, but you hear the similarities and the clarity of that sound and the opulence and how it carries, and you imagine those qualities in your own sound. You can't, no one's going to sound the same, and I think that's a blessing. Because if everybody picked up the trumpet and they sounded exactly the same, what's the point in listening to another trumpet player? You just listen to one, you heard them all, right? It's but what happens is you let these influences uh, get into your imagination, and you imagine those qualities in your own sound, and you start hearing them in your sound, and pretty soon your sound has a clarity of its own, and it will be your sound. It's a good quality sound is a good quality sound. There's many different players have little different, subtle little differences and stylistic differences and all that kind of things. But you hear that quality, and it's there.
All
It's
right. Next question comes in from Freddie. It's about flexibility. He's asking, if for you is flexibility, is it a face muscle thing or is it tongue level related?
oh God, no, don't think about face muscles or tongue levels or any of that stuff. Just think about the smoothness of your playing, and play it slow enough that you can play them. Uh, I used to do the Charles Colin lift flexibilities a lot, and I remember Mr. Adam didn't wasn't crazy about him, and I played him for him, and he said, "Yeah, that's great, go ahead." But I didn't play him loud, and I didn't play him. See if I can demonstrate it here without haven't been playing that much for a few days here because of dealing with too many other things. But and then there's another one towards the end. Number 14, I think, is. And I don't play them loud, but I try and play them smooth and as quickly as I can on some of these things, just to keep the airflow steady. Is a big secret to it. If you start thinking about tongue level, you're going to be tied in knots. You just play the damn trumpet. Don't try and analyze it. Analysis leads to paralysis. You start thinking about corners and tongue movement and all this kind of stuff. You already got your mind in the wrong place.
Great advice. Great advice. Next question comes from Robert, and I got to tell you, Charlie, we have a lot of with some Walt Blanton students in the chat commenting. You were good friends with Walt, weren't you?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So many Adam students, and there's second generation and now third generation students. So it's show us some love in the comments, and it's great to see what's going on, the camaraderie showing up here on Facebook. So next question comes from Robert Miller. Some days the trumpet is easier to play than others. Right? What do you recommend getting through getting the trumpet to resonate when those days you're having an off day or you're having a bad day?
Slow it down. Slow it down. Concentrate on the sound, airflow. Just can't concentrate. Like you might want to slow down, do Herbert L. Clark #1 or any of the Clarks, and you just do it slowly. Like that, or even slower if you want. But connecting it and keeping the sound constant through the thing, that's one of the things that when I was subbing on the Tonight Show and Doc Severinsen was the band leader, he'd always practice. He'd practice all the time. They'd be practicing under the bleachers, and I'd go back and talk to him a little bit. Sometimes he'd ask me to listen to these mouthpieces, and he'd be playing stuff like that. Our Arvins. And he would slow them way down like that, and just play with a beautiful, clear sound, and keep it all going that way. So you don't, it's this ain't rocket science. A lot of people start trying to figure out every little minute thing about it. You got to let it be a more natural approach to it, and not try and figure it all out. So if it's not happening one day, hey, it's like, what's the quote? Let me see if I can find it back here. In the very back of the book, I put it in. This is Roy Eldridge. You have to remember the trumpet is a mean instrument, the meanest there is. It's a damn monster. Sometimes I feel like throwing it out the window. It's such a beast. There are times when it treats you so sweet and nice that everything comes out just perfect. Then you come back to it the next night, rub your hands together, and say to yourself, you're going to do it all over again. You pick up the horn, put it to your chops, and the son of a bitch says, "Screw you." so everybody has those days, but you just slow it down and you just get your air steady and take a good full breath. You're going to find out a lot of problems that you have are related to how your air works. So, and we'll get into that when somebody asks me a right question.
So the next question comes from Kyle about upper register development, but it may be related. About how do you find the correct oral aperture shape for playing up high?
Okay. Why do you have to find the perfect oral aperture for playing up high? I would like him to explain that to me. No, you just practice, and you practice, with my guess is if you are thinking that way, again, it's the same old thing, you're thinking in the wrong place. But a lot of tension comes from your breath. And a lot of tension when you go in the upper register in particular comes from what Bill Adam used to call a grunt muscle. It'd be this kind of thing where you start to compress and pull your chest down or your shoulders down. And a lot of people do it unknowingly. I mean, if Kyle were here, I could see him. Can you see him?
No.
Okay.
I can see you.
Okay. We're both unfortunate.
Yeah.
but can they see me?
Oh yeah.
Okay. All right. Good. All right. So I'll just show you something here. I'm going to put my hand on my chest here. Now you got to understand how tension is generated by bad breathing, and you got to understand how your body works up here. You have what are called intercostal muscles that lie between your ribs, and they lay on the outside. There's two layers, an outer layer and an inner layer of intercostal muscles. And anytime you have muscle activity, like if I shake my finger like this, my head's bobbing. You got a sympathetic movement from that muscle being energized. When you breathe, a lot of people, there's a couple of things they do. They may take a high breath like this. If they do that and their shoulders raise and you can see my hand, I'm going to put it here. I'm going to take a bad breath here. Now I'm going to count, and you listen to my voice. Here's my normal speaking voice, unfortunately. But I'm going to count to 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now I'm going to take a breath incorrectly, and you're going to hear the tension immediately. You'll hear it subside as the air is let out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Did you hear that? I hope. So what happens if you're taking your air high like that? You're engaging those intercostal muscles. The intercostal muscles in your chest have a sympathetic muscle response in your throat and your tongue. And that's the reason guys who breathe high are compressed. I'll show the other thing here in a minute. But who breathe high or have that tension from some result, they will have trouble tonguing in a high register, or maybe tonguing anything above the staff, and their sound might get a lot more different when they play in the upper register, be more shrill and more difficult to get anything out. The other thing is you can breathe correctly, which I'll take a real full breath here now and watch my hand this time. That's a full breath. I don't hear the tension in my voice either. It's gone. It's still my normal speaking voice, and I still got air left. Okay? So, but what happens with, they might have their air be taking their breath correctly like that, is they'll start pulling down when they, instead of having their compression for the air in their lower body, which we'll talk about here in a second, they'll do this and pull down to their chest and their shoulders and compress from here, and that it gets that tension again right up in here like that, and that does the same damn thing again. It causes that tension in your throat and your tongue. So another thing is, where does that support come from? You hear a lot of people talk about the abdomen. The abdomen is an involuntary muscle. It lies between your respiratory and your digestive tract. And you really can't do a damn thing with it. It's all the other muscles that affect it. When you take a full breath, it drops, and you can feel it filling up in the back, your lower back. Now, the support is a very natural thing, and this is something that a lot of guys don't get. When you go to support the tone, it's not like right here, like you're doing push-ups or curls or anything like that, and just working on those abdominal muscles. You got to think where your core is. It's a natural thing. When you swing a baseball bat, for example, your body actually feels fairly relaxed. But where you always feel it is about halfway between your pelvic bone and your belly button. And that's your core. And it always energizes your body. Whether you're doing weights, whether you're running, whether you're shooting a basketball, you'll feel that energized there. And that's where the center of your energy comes from. And if you do this kind of thing, trying to support from up here and tightening all this, you're too high. It's got to be like if you yell, hey, in a natural way, you'll feel that core of your body energized. You don't have to tighten your abdomen or anything like that. You can't tighten your abdomen. You can't. Abdominal muscles. These here, they'll develop on their own, but that's not where the center of the energy comes from. It's much lower. You'll feel it like that if you do that. But anyway, that's where so when you take your breath, imagine that energizing from down there, and it actually makes you sit up taller It's your teachers used to say, "Hey, sit up straight in your chair," when you're playing.
Who's
That,
doing that right now? Oh, I'm
yeah,
slouching.
that's helps to set that core up. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and there was a couple follow-ups to that. One is so you don't raise your chest at all when you're breathing.
No.
Okay, and then also in terms of your studies with Mr. Adam, how much of this did he directly work on you with about breathing, and did he teach?
We talked about similar things I'm saying right now.
Hmm.
Absolutely, but he would say different things to different guys. So, uh, and as you practice and you work on getting that sound relaxed and developing, your register high and low, you'll start realizing that the breath has to be low, and you'll feel it in your back and your lower back especially. It's like you imagine like you're hugging a tree and taking a breath or something.
Just one thing in terms of logistics: is it possible to lower your camera just a hair? Because you're doing a lot of stuff with your chest and abdomen, and
Okay.
getting a little low in the shot. So thanks for the suggestion there in the comments.
I stand up, but I don't have my pants on.
Yeah,
Is
then if
that?
you scoot back a little bit, yeah, it's a little bit better. Yeah,
Yeah. See,
a little bit more if possible,
all right, let me see if I can lower this a little bit more.
just a touch. Yeah, so while he's doing that, show us some love in the comments. Be sure, if you're watching, share this live. And also, by way of logistics, this will be posted live after the fact. I mean, it won't be live. It'll be posted after the fact on our Facebook page. So if you missed part of it, or if you're just joining us, you can start right from the beginning, so you don't want to miss any of that. The next question comes from, hey, speaking of Gary Gopar, where did that question? Oh, we have some stories, Gary. Great guy. How many minutes is your typical warm up, Charlie? And then also, I guess, would split that up also in terms of, I mean, doing a routine, but then also when are you warmed up and ready to do like a session, something like that?
Well, if you're fortunate enough to be working a lot, which I have been in the past, but you can just about pick up the horn and go right away.
Hmm.
If you're practicing and keeping everything in a good working order, it's the same kind of thing. You pick up the horn and you find you don't need much of a warm up. I'll do the lead pipe and then maybe do Herbert Clark and I'm done. That's all I need. The rest of it, I just figures just practicing and strengthening everything, keeping everything in shape.
Hmm.
Yeah, warm ups. I don't think should be terribly long. Some guys spend too much time doing that, I think, and do your routine and then play some music. Play some lyrical etudes. That's a great way to get your air going too. Just pick out some the Charley stuff, the real lyrical ones, or the Shane's etudes are good. You want to do some simple ones. One thing Adam had us all do was we played those Getchell books, and he made us transpose them. So you play it cover to cover a few times. When you got comfortable and had it all in your ear how the melodies were, you go back and you play it in C, and you do that till that was comfortable, and you do it in D, and you do it in E flat, you do it in E, you do it in F. You can do it in A if you want it down. But what that does too is it slowly raises the range, and then you start developing that. You're hearing, how it goes as far as the sound of the melody goes. So it takes some of the tension, the reading tension out of it, and you're able to play more concentrating on your sound. But playing a lot of, you don't have to just play the routine books. You need to play some music every day, whether it's Getchell or some other etude you're choosing, or some solo that you want to work on. Set yourself some goals and do that.
Other than the Getchell book, do you have any go-to etudes that you like to play or give to your students?
Well, of course, Charlie A. There's a lot of good stuff in there. Of course, they're all good. I like the Shane's book. I like the the bitch books, or Bish, if you want to, however the hell you say it, and what's it, Julian Falk, if you want to get the intervals going, and there's a number of other ones. There's a lot of those fringe studies are really great. Uh, I got a whole thing of them on my computer. I just flip through them sometimes when I just want to play a bunch of stuff like that. I just pull them up, start playing through them. I got them all the books are out in the garage. but also work on solo pieces. If you hear a solo that you really like, and somebody's recording in it, which I would encourage you to do too. Listen to all the great soloists there are today. And if they play a solo you really like, and it's not too technically difficult or anything for you, get the music, play it. You got that guide that you can always go back to and listen to how he did it, or she, whoever, But there's a lot of very lyrical things that are great for developing your sound.
Yeah, great suggestions. The next question comes from Matt Collins, all the way down in Sydney. How are you, Matt? Matt came out for the Atom Fest when I was at APU a few years back. So
Okay.
he's watching. He's asking if you're planning on releasing any audio along with your book. Maybe of play-along examples or of other Atom students. Is that something you thought about or plan on?
I have thought about that, yeah. What would be fun is to get different Atom students who I know, like Carl and people like that, and we all do some of these things together, which would be, then you hear different sounds, you hear different personalities and that kind of thing. It could be very cool. Yeah, I have thought of that, and then do the spacing so you can play it afterwards. So it's play, rest, play, rest, play, rest, and you have to put that time in resting. That's a very important part of it. Yeah, you want to keep it to your face all the time.
Now, a lot of times people talk about the Atom routine, and there's been things passed around the internet of some sort of official routine.
There is no official routine.
Yeah, could you speak to that a little bit, and especially in Mr. Adams' approach with students?
Yeah, there's he approached every student individually, and of course when he got where he had just a flood of students, which was after a lot of us had left, and he was, he had a lot of students. He spent all day at school, just like, he'd go home and have dinner, come back and work some more in the evening. I don't know how many hours he put in there. He was very, very devoted to his students, and he worked with every student individually. And there were elements that were the same, and there are elements that were different. And early on, when I was there, we would start the day playing Herbert L. Clark #1, starting on F sharp and just expanding it half step lower, half step higher. Then we'd go right into expanding scales, and then we do the Schlossberg stuff. Some of it were different than are in the book here a little bit. Some of them were not. There were more things sometimes than what's there. But that was the general thing that everybody got. And then, of course, the book has all kinds of variations also to show that you don't have to play it the same way every day. Once you get it down, you can, change it a little bit and keep the same kind of basic thing there. But I remember one time that when I was there was a trumpet player who was playing, and he had this weird thing with his neck. There's like all this tension here, and I noticed that Mr. Adam was doing that one day in my lesson, and I asked him about it, and he told me, he says, well, so and so. I actually was got to be an assistant for him, but I was undergraduate, which was very weird. But I was like an undergraduate assistant. And anyway, he was telling me that what he was doing was he was putting himself into the same situation and playing like that guy did, and then figuring out how to get himself out of it. And so it was, as a professional player, he could not have done that.
Is,
As a full-time teacher, he could,
is there anything during your years with Mr. Adam that particularly stands out to you about how he taught you?
He kind of let me go my own way and made suggestions to me. And a lot of times there were suggestions that were subtle enough I didn't pick up on them till later. And because he almost had his degree in psychology as well, and he believed using Gestalt, which is to say something to someone to change their behavior rather than to try and analyze why they were doing something. Gestalt, and he would say things in a certain way to you that made you realize maybe more about listening or sound or whatever. But it was kind of cumulative through the years. All of a sudden, like the light bulb goes off, and you go, "Oh, I get it." Yeah. But I remember I would try some things on my own, and when I got in to see him, I'd say, "Yeah, I was doing this. What do you think of this?" And he goes, "Yeah, that's great for you." Yeah, fine. Go ahead and do that. Yeah.
Run with it. And when you were at Indiana, I mean, it was roaring for a number of years, but I mean, there was a lot of great players, right? They were going to school with you. What was that like there in the hallways in Indiana?
A lot of fun. A lot of fun. One thing, we would practice together, and I encourage anybody to if you got a practice buddy, get together and play together. It makes it more interesting. You're playing off each other's sound. You got the automatic spacing, so you're playing and resting and playing and resting and all that, and it makes it easier to do and easier to focus on all that stuff. I asked Herseth one time what he did when he was. I took a lesson from him. In the late '60s when he was kind of in his heyday. Larry Hall and I went up there, and I asked him about his practicing, what he did, and he said, "Well, a lot of times what I'll do is just have one of my buddies come over and we'll play duets all afternoon." so it was like having somebody there to play with, like, and play the duets, and then it makes it more fun. Of course, we did some crazy things in Indiana when we got out of recital hall when no one was there and play those. What was on there was a canon there that was or a thing where you start playing one guy can start here, one guy can start at the bottom or go up or something. I forget what it was. And we had something like 12 players down there playing. It must be only for two, I think.
Wow.
And everybody starting at a different time. It was chaotic. It was crazy. But there was an atmosphere there of a lot of guys just like really really into it and going for it. I think there were 75. I'm sure there's nothing like that anymore there. 75 trumpet majors, not education people, just trumpet majors.
Wow.
I mean, that's pretty incredible, I think. But yeah, it was there was a lot. Yeah, and it wasn't. There was no backstabbing, no hostility. Everybody got along fine. It was just a nice. I think Bill Adam was probably responsible for some of that attitude.
Yeah, the camaraderie is a big thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Next question comes from Carlos. He's asking, what's the best way to approach the Piccolo trumpet?
Carefully. Cautiously. No, actually, you can. I got one right here. I would play and get the melodies in your ear. Listen to the pieces you're trying to work on. Know how they sound. Don't try and overblow it. It's generally speaking, it's a smaller bore. Not so much anymore. People are doing 453, 460 bores, and it used to be 445, 430, something like that. Some are even smaller than that. I think the Selmer pick was a much smaller bore. You don't try and overblow them, because one thing, if you do, here. It almost sounds like a bright big trumpet. This is an A. I mean, it's not, it's not the sound you want.
Mm-hmm.
You want, it's you don't try and straighten the bell out on the thing when you blow it. Back off, play the clear sound, and play it as lyrically and as smoothly as you can. It's just, again, it's just a matter of setting your tush down and practicing. But make sure you're not don't try and play higher on that than you do on your B flat or your C, whatever your main instrument is. Because it's not made to make the high register easier. That's not what a piccolo is about. So if you think you're going to pick up a piccolo and suddenly you're going to be able to play in the high register easier, not going to happen.
Not going to happen.
No.
Well, we have the Bob Baca students are having a watch party in Wisconsin. So hey guys, hope you guys are doing safe and staying safe and healthy out there in Wisconsin. And actually,
if they have their masks on,
make sure you have your masks on. So do you have any Bob Baca stories that you can tell over the internet, I guess?
No, Bob was actually there a little after me.
Uh-huh.
Bob's a wonderful guy. I have a great deal of respect for him. He's turned out some really good students. And I know Bob, reasonably well. I've gone fishing with him. but in college I was there a year or so, maybe a few years before him. I think he may have come there as graduate school, and I was just there in undergraduate school. And then went on the road.
Yeah, which actually leads us to the next question. We had two of them. I'll kind of combine them. How long were you on the road with Buddy Rich? And then also the other question that came in was, everyone has a Buddy Rich story. So do you have any that you can share from being on the road? So how long, and give us a good story.
Okay. Let's see if I can think of one I can tell. I was on the road actually for about 3 years. I first started on the musical Hair, and went on the road with that when it was very popular, and they had touring companies and all that. And from that, a friend of mine who I actually knew in Vegas, also he's gone now, a guy named Bob Pearson, wonderful tenor player. Bob took me to we were in the same town as Woody was playing, and he took me in and told them that they should call me for Woody's band. And I did get that call, and I left the Hair show, took $100 a week pay cut, and did a lot of one-nighters, which I wasn't doing with the Hair show, but I wanted to play Woody's band. And then for Woody's band, I was on Hair for maybe 9 months, and I was on Woody's band for at least a year and a half, and then I went to Buddy's band for a year. Seemed like 10, but it was only no, I'm kidding.
Well, I mean, you were playing lead. I mean, you're in the hot seat. What was that like? I mean, you obviously had good preparation, already touring, already playing with Woody, but what was it like playing with Buddy?
Well, my first experience with that was actually I had a great experience with Buddy. I got along with Buddy most of the time pretty well. But and the one thing I liked about Buddy was he wanted the band to sound good. And Woody never said anything. It was he got in his car and drove on to the next gig, but Woody would say, "All right, you guys, I want you to have a sectional. Such and such wasn't good," and you did it. He seemed to have more personal involvement in how the band sounded. But my first experience was Lynn Viviano, who actually got me on Buddy's band. I'd taken a Christmas break on Woody's band, and when I was got a phone call at Christmas time from Lynn, and he says, "Would you like to take my place?" And I said, hell yes, I'm ready. I was playing almost all the lead on Woody's band at that point anyway. But there was some politics involved, and I was happy to get out of that. And so I went back on Woody's band. I called Bill Byrne up, and who was the manager, and Bill said, "I don't blame you, Charlie. Take it." So I went and played Dante's here in Studio City, which is now a BMW dealership, and the building is gone and everything. But I went and played that, and took a red eye right after the last set at Dante's. A friend of mine, Mike Berkowitz, the drummer in New York, we were all in college together, and Berkowitz took me to the airport. I'd forgotten about that. He told me the last time I played with him. I got into the airport, took a taxi, and went straight into Manhattan to the rehearsal.
Cool.
and played the rehearsal, and then just started working.
Amazing. Next, we had this kind of a follow up. What equipment were you using? Dennis Johnson was asking if did you play a Benge?
I did. I started on Woody's band playing a large bore Bach with a 3C and an 87 back bore. I still have it here somewhere, and it was a huge sound. But it didn't blend. This is how I met Bob, actually. And I went through trying to find some mouthpieces. Some of the guys were playing Schilke's, and I bought one of the Schilke chase models, because several of the guys were playing. What was that? The B6 or something? I can't remember. Mm-hmm. I was actually a medium bore. After playing that big horn, I could not, and a big setup, I couldn't get used to that horn. I wish I kept it now, but at the time I just couldn't get used to it, and I went back to my Bach, the large bore, and I ended up going, I think, to a medium large Mount Vernon I had also. And I tried some different mouthpieces and stuff along the way, trying to get where I could blend better with everybody. And it wasn't until I came to LA here and I went to see Bob, and we sat down for an afternoon and worked out some things. In fact, it's very similar to this one I got here, except that at that time it was using one of Bob's rims on it. I always played a 3C, so this one has a 3C rim, and it's a V cup and a 692 backboard, and that's pretty much what I got from him, and that got me going. And then while I was on Woody's band, I got to play with Al Porcino, and Porcino got a Benge trumpet, and he didn't like it, and I played it. I said I kind of liked it, and so I got it for whatever he paid for it. In those days, it wasn't very much money. I played that through the rest of the time on Woody's band and most of the time on Buddy's band.
Was that still Burbank, or was that
no,
LA?
That was probably an early LA at that time. So they hadn't screwed up the mandrel at that time.
And do you happen to know what model that was?
Yeah, it was a 3X.
3X.
I think it might have. Actually, he told me. Yeah, I think it was a dual bore. I think he put a choke had him put a choke on the bell here. I think it might have been an MLP with a bit of a choke here, so it brightened it up a little bit. I ended up giving it. If the guy's still there from Australia, I ended up selling it to John Hoffman. He played it until he wore it out. And I'd switched back to my Bach by the end of the time on Buddy's band.
Hey, so Matt, if you're still watching, that might be that horn might be still floating around Australia somewhere.
I'm sure there's not much left of it.
Although, yeah, seeing John Hoffman's mouthpiece, his Reeves piece, it's now like flugelhorn length. So, Yeah, cool, guys. Let us know where you're watching from. We have time for maybe another question or two, but show us in the comments section where you're viewing from around the world. I mean, we've already spanned from, I saw the Netherlands and Japan and Australia, all across the U.S. So let us know where you're watching from. And if we can't get to your question live here, then we might be able to do some follow ups in the comments afterwards. So ask away in the comments, and we will try to get to them. $1 million question, Charlie. You
Uh-oh.
ready for this?
Not sure.
From Evan Barker, Scotch or bourbon?
Both, but not at the same time.
Okay. Could you talk a little bit, Charlie, about what it was like coming to LA and finally settling down after being on the road? I mean, you went to Vegas first, but what was it
Yeah.
like coming to LA and then getting into the studios?
Uh, First couple of years were really tough in that, and or first year or so anyway. And I had friends here who were helping open some doors, but I was fortunate enough to get into doing in those days when there were Hanna-Barbera cartoons, so I started doing those within either the first year or the second year anyway. And that was great training because you'd go in and you'd have literally a stack of music like this on your stand and a 3 hour call. And then the Hoyt Curtin was the band leader, and he would say, "All right, let's play this." We record it, and they say, "Okay, now we'll go from here to here, make a cut, play that." You do a 30-second version, you do a 20-second, 15-second, and a 10-second bumpers, all out of the same thing. Next case, and we move on. We get through all that music in 3 hours like that. So it was like bang, 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 and there was great players there, you know. And that was great training to get you ready for a lot of stuff. But yeah, now there was a lot of horn dates started, still going on at that time. So you're doing some some horn section stuff for records, and then later on it kind of changed a little bit. There were less of the horn section, and everybody we all played Colicchios for a long time there because they were bright and they would get on tape for all the records and things. And then it's got into the TV films, and the films, I went back to the Bach again, and because it was a better sound for that kind of stuff, So yeah, anyway.
Yeah, and that kind of a follow up to that, when you're switching styles and switching, studio session one day you're doing jazz or lead, next day you're more classical, things like that. Do you switch up equipment or switch up your approach to playing when you're switching like that?
Well, you just switch up the way you think. I had those questions from the Japanese on that trumpet thing, and they asked something similar to that.
Mm-hmm.
And I told them a story about playing in Vegas with Sam Noto. And Sam was he still is, I'm sure, a great jazz player. And he also played really good lead trumpet. And he'd play lead and he'd be playing double C's and stuff, And he'd play jazz and he'd have this warm, fuzzy kind of sound, and he didn't change anything, And I said, "Sam, how the hell do you do that?" He says, "I just change the way I think." So you just think about the music and it changes, your imagination again, It's a great thing. But yeah, you don't have to change equipment that much. Sometimes you might want to darken the sound a little more. You don't want to use a super shallow mouthpiece on a pretty lyrical trumpet solo, So what I use is not super shallow anyway. So, but yeah, it's you just kind of change the way you think about it.
All right, next question, and this will probably be the last one, and we should probably do our own show about this because we have so much great trumpet talk. But I mean, you have a whole other side of your career with your mutes and your trumpets. And oh man, we have Scotland, Israel checking in, and then this question is from Nando in the Netherlands, which
maybe we should go a little longer.
Well, yeah, or we can do an equipment one as well. But let's talk about how you started making and developing your own line of mutes, and then also if you can tag onto that how you got into the trumpet making.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, the mutes are easy. In fact, what we were just talking about kind of ties into that about playing different equipment and stuff. I was doing a one trumpet TV film thing, and the writer, I'm sure he didn't realize what he was doing as far as the difficulty and what it was. I had like something like 2 beats to change from open trumpet to harmon mute and play unison with the oboe. And of course, everybody knows damn near every harmon mute is very sharp. And so what I ended up doing was playing C trumpet, I think it was, on the open stuff, and had my B flat trumpet laying on my lap with the mute in it. And so I just did this. And when I hadn't played, like, played one handed until I got the C trumpet settled in, and I was able to do it, but it was driving me crazy. And then when I started thinking about it, I go, why the hell is a harmon mute so out of tune? And so I started experimenting with that, and I got some of my mutes here. I can show you. This is one of my new anodized red ones. I got to sort in the colors here. But the thing I wanted to do, and also harmon mutes never played well in the low register. So I know there has to be a way to fix this. So you got the same pitch.
Hey, Charlie, point away from the mic a little bit when you play.
Okay, so here's the open pitch. So it's virtually the same pitch. It'll vary a little bit according to the throat of your bell. You play pedal tones on it. So I started working on that. It took me a while to figure it out, and of course I had my friend Zig Cancel, who was a big help in all that, because I would make the forms on wood on a lathe in my garage and take them down to Zig, and they would spin metal on them. You couldn't do them very many on them, and I would experiment with different things in the mute that would change the pitch and try not to change the color of the sound. That was the tricky part. And I finally got something I think that works very well. I mean, I gave one like this to Wallace Rooney before he passed away here recently, and he was using my harmon mute. Anyway,
yeah.
But it's that's how that got started. And I did the same thing. Actually, the wonderful people at Con Selmer bought UMI, and I had a contract with UMI to make my mutes and just licensed it to them. So Con Selmer took it over, and they just screwed it totally up. They lost all of my tooling. So these are off. I had my original aluminum tools I did, so I was able to get these. And then I started I'm doing the straight mute now. This is one of my original straight mutes. And this is the first one that we've made as a prototype for me to check out. It's pretty darn close. It's you can see I made it a smidge longer, but this is the same thing. I was trying to get a mute that played in tune, so you didn't have to hassle with, because straight mutes are constantly sharp too. And so I kind of learned some things about what changes the intonation and started to try and make a straight mute. And I actually made one that was a little better in tune. The sound wasn't as good. Yeah, that's pieces of a mute. But this one was the original one I made. It's a little different sound, and you couldn't use it on a C trumpet because it's too long. Here's the new one. So it's right in the ballpark. So you don't have to hassle with the intonation so much. That was my, and still keep the character of the sound I wanted. That's what got me started doing the mutes. I did a cut mute which I haven't redone yet, thanks to Con Selmer. I'm having to go back and do all this stuff. And of course, they didn't pay me a dime for losing about $7,000 worth of tooling.
But you're getting back. So you started with the Harmons, which you have in aluminum, and like you showed the bunch of different colors and the anodized, but then you also have them with the copper. And what for?
On the string, I'm going to have copper and brass like I used to have,
Mm-hmm.
and have a all copper one that's going to be engraved, and also do the copper silver plating. And I have copper in these are all aluminum. They're anodized aluminum, and you can do them in all these various colors. In fact, you can under any color you want. Well, here's a little trick for you guys. If you're looking for a practice mute, where is it? Oh, here. You take your Harmon mute and you get a test tube stopper. Let's see what number this guy is.
Yeah, hold it up a little higher if you could.
Yeah, it's just a regular.
Oh yeah, for a test tube.
Test tube.
Yeah.
You put it in your Harmon mute. That's the one hole. And if you want it a little bit louder, you get the 2-hole version. And I guarantee you'll like it as well as any of the $75 or $100 practice mutes. About 25 cents.
There you go. But that it's hard to see in the camera, but that the stopper has a hole through it, right? It's.
Oh yeah, I don't know if you.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
You see that?
Yes.
That's a 2-hole, and then there's the 1-hole. They're just test tube stoppers where they would put different tubes into the whatever they're cooking. Mm-hmm. And,
So going from mutes to trumpets, that's a big jump. Why and how did you start making trumpets on your own?
Well, I of course I'm friends with Zig Cancel, so I had a lot of help right there, And I told Zig, I said, because Zig made a sort of a copy of a Colicchio, and it was hard. There weren't any really good Colicchios anymore. Once they kind of floated around, they got to Tulsa, and they were kind of inconsistent, and it seemed like they were out of business. No one knew anything about Colicchio, at that point. So I said, Zig, I want to try and see if we can put together a good Colicchio. And Zig's inevitable way says, I couldn't do it, so you won't be able to. So I said, well, I want to try. So I went over to my friend Tony Scodwell, and I brought all these parts. And actually, the first one I did is right here.
That's number 1, huh? Or 0?
No serial number on it. And I since changed it a little bit. I put a silver lead pipe on it. But so I can. And anyway, I went down to see Zig after we put this one together, and I said, Zig, sit over there. I want you to hear something. I had a Colicchio and I had this one, and I said, sit across the room. I'll play this for you. And I played them, and he says, I can't tell them apart. And he's just kind of going like, geez, And he says, come here and sit down. I want to talk to you. So I sat there, and he says, listen, there's no way you can do this on your own. He says, we'll make them for you. Mm-hmm. That'll be a good deal. So that's how I got started doing that. And then of course, I don't have one out here, but this horn right here, that's the prototype for the Sterling bell from Bach. And it's supposed to be a 37. It's not. And I found out the story was they had sheets of sterling enough to make 8 bells. They burned up 6 of them trying to seam them, and then they finally got 2 out. And I think by that time they were so paranoid to press them down on the mandrel that they don't even. You look at the flare of the bell; it's different than a 37. And this one is great. I'm sure it's different from the other one. There only 2 came out, and I got this from Bach early on there. I did that Sterling Plus sampler thing that they put out, playing that one and playing a brass belled horn. And anyway, so as we got into all this making these things, this is a new one. It's just been made, the 1S. The 1S2 like that one is. And in fact, here I'll play this one. You see if you can hear a difference in the sound. Probably very close. It's anyway. So I had these going, and then I thought, well, I wonder if we can get somebody to make this bell mandrel. Can somebody copy this bell? And I got one of the guys down at Cancel to get all the numbers off the bell, and we made a mandrel. And I started making that horn as well. So that's how I got started on that.
So we'll do more equipment stuff. I mean, actually, the shop's open up next week, and we're doing this virtually, but we'll be able to do Q&As like this live. So when you're up at the shop, we can fire up on Facebook and YouTube and stuff, and be able to do this again and get more in depth, especially about trumpets and designs and things like that. So thank you guys all for watching. Show us some love in the comments, and like I said, this will be posted to Facebook afterward, so if you missed any of it, go ahead and you can rewind in a few minutes after it all processes. One last question, Charlie.
Yeah.
We had a couple folks that have your mutes, the early mutes from the 90s, and want to know, do you have any tips on recorking? Especially a lot of us are sitting around at home with nothing to do these days.
Yeah. Okay. Some of these aren't glued. I can show you what to do right here. What you do is you're going to take tape like duct tape or something, and put it around here. And then you need to cut it off even here and a parallel line here. Okay? Now what you're going to do is you're going to split that tape right here and carefully peel it off. And what it will look like, let's see if I got one in here. Okay, this has got a bad seam. I'm going to break it apart. Maybe. Yeah. So what it'll look like is that. So you lay, this is neoprene, and it's probably an 1/8 inch. But you can use cork or neoprene. And what you do is you'll have a template then made out of that tape. So you lay that template on a flat sheet, and you cut the pattern out like that. And then you fold it over, and you glue it there first. And I use a neoprene glue, a wetsuit glue. So if you have that, so you glue that and you make a seam right there. I'm going to redo this one. And then when you open it up, you have something like this. And you got a good seam on it then. And then you put glue, and I use a silicone glue. And the reason I use a silicone glue is because if you get any drippage or anything like a little over gluing, you can actually take up tweezers and get it started and peel it right off, and it will just leave you a nice clean line right there.
And what about for like straight mutes that don't, that have the cork or the stripes?
Well, straight mute. I ordered a whole bunch of cork years ago, and I have it in strips, and they have a beveling here where they go on like that. I got some in the other room. I get here's a small piece. I don't know if you can see that on the camera that it has a little bevel in it.
Mm-hmm.
It's got a, and if you can do that, you can probably do that with a round file, and then you can cut it off, and then like in this case, see I flatten the edges so it's not a square thing going into your horn, and then you just cut them off and glue those on there.
Awesome. Well, Charley, thank you so much. It's great to see you. Too bad we don't get to see each other in person, although soon we'll get together at the shop. And yeah, and thank you all for watching. And
we'll answer them for them on the thing or something. Give me a list of questions. We'll try and answer them all. Shoot them off to them somewhere.
Yeah, Charley's a smart one. You're not on Facebook, but yeah, we'll pass on the questions to you, and we'll figure out ways to get you commenting on there, or we'll do it for you. And also, just so you know, because you can't see the comments, a lot of love from your former students. Simon from Sydney, Australia, took 2 lessons from you and said they were life-changing. So if you're watching this and you had a lesson from Charley, show some love down in the comments, and we'll be checking in the next few days as well. So,
Simon, say hello to Hoffman.
So, Charley, thank you. This is so great to see you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you all for watching. It was so great to have you all here. So much love all the way around the world. I mean, in these difficult times, doing things like this to bring everyone together. I mean, I'll post a photo later. I'm literally crouched in the corner of my bedroom to do these things. But it's so awesome. Thank you, guys. I have some news. If you've watched some of these other ones, the shop will be opening up next week for production, which is great. Some of you guys on there were asking about Charley's mutes. We do have them available and can ship. We're getting back to making mouthpieces again and phone consultations. Still not doing in-person consultations yet, but hey, we'll get there when it's safe. Coming up next week, I have a few guests confirmed. We're still working out some of the schedules. Follow us on Twitter, follow us on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. We're going to make these announcements because you're not going to want to miss these guests, let me tell you. I can tell you about one, and especially for you Adam guys, next Thursday, we will have Jerry Hay, arranger, trumpeter, sea wind, all of that stuff. So you're going to want to not miss that. Next Thursday, same time, 2 o'clock p.m. Pacific time, 5 o'clock Eastern time, and we'll have Jerry on here asking your questions. That's it for today. Wherever you are around the world, I hope you are safe. I hope you are healthy, and I hope you find some time to practice. And let's fire it up for the weekend, shall we? Bye-bye.